So we're going to be live for a few minutes before we start the meeting, so the cameras are going to be on. Just so you
Be sure you smile. Look happy.
Yep, got it. Yep, I'm sending it on. And I got Barbara's and Tom's. I didn't get it from Eric, and I did not get one from Karen, but I can ask. Sure.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I'd like to call to order the Morgantown Utility Board regular meeting for Tuesday, June 14th, 2022. First item on the agenda will be the approval of minutes. We had in our read ahead both the minutes of the regular meeting of May 10, 2022 and the special meeting on May 24, 2022. So if there aren't any corrections or deletions to the minutes, looking for a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of May 10th, 2022, and the special meeting of May 24th, 2022 as submitted.
I second.
Okay, motion and a second to approve the minutes of both May 10 and May 24 meetings. Questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimous. We'll now open it up to the public. If anyone in the audience would like to speak to the board, you can come up to the podium, name, address, and give you 5 minutes. You can keep it that short for whatever you like to say.
Right. I'm Mark Russell Road, 324 West Road, Morgantown, West Virginia. I'm really here as a representative and really wanted to express to the board over the course of the last 45 days, staff at Bub, Montague County working. We don't always agree, but I wanted to express to you all the history that I've been involved in Morgantown. I think we've had a very good, healthy dialogue between all of the parties working on trying to solve the infrastructure issues on the west side of the county and moving forward. And we really appreciate that, and I wanted to express this will probably involve the board at some point in time, but we just wanted, I wanted to first that group is Mark Russell, an individual, the hard work
Thank you, Mark. Anyone else in the audience like to speak to the board? Okay. We'll move on to under new business. First item would be the insurance bids.
Yes, we had put out for bid our workers' compensation, property, liability, and automotive insurance. MUB received quotes from 2 firms, USI and Assured Partners. Just so the board knows, we did request some assistance with reviewing those proposals. We worked with Bray and Oakley Insurance out of Logan. and they were very helpful to us. You have a breakdown of the quotes. I'll go through it just rather quickly. USI brought in the travelers insurance for consideration. We would also have their workers' compensation coverage as well. That quote was for $435,047. Assured Partners had three different combinations. One with AIG for the main insurance and Encova for the workers' comp. That was at $447,960. They also had the combination of AIG and AIG for workers' comp. That was $467,507, and Zurich with Encova at $523,715. After we completed our evaluation and had some follow-up questions, we are recommending to the board to accept the USI quote of $435,047. And I would like to say there are representatives here from USI this evening that could answer any questions that you may have.
Tom?
I have a question on the workers' comp. I noticed about a $15,000 difference between Travelers and Encova. Is there any reason for that difference in terms of coverage or co-pays or anything along those lines?
Not that I'm, Jeff, and you jump in, but I'm not aware of any differences in the coverages. And with Travelers, you do have to take the workers' comp as part of the package. You can't split them out, so it is part of what comes with it for our commercial insurance. But again, if you have any specific questions about that coverage, they could answer those. Unless it's just asking about the cost difference.
Hi, Jeffrey Gage, 1222 Chase Street, Morgantown, West Virginia. Are you speaking on premium? Because we weren't able to see the equivalent offer. Is it $1,500 in premium?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, the coverage would be all the same. We quoted based on payrolls, and so the difference in premium would probably be based on rate. For individual class codes, there's class codes that are associated with the work month does. So the premium difference would be the traveler's rate would potentially be a little less through the combination of the class code rates. Coverage is still the same. Workers' comp is a as far as deductibles, there's a deductible in the workers' comp plan. So in that regard, it'd be very comparable to from a coverage standpoint.
As it relates to class codes, is the entire MUB organization classified under one class code, or is there a separation between the field staff versus the office staff?
Yeah, and I apologize, I don't have it, but there's quite a few codes. For instance, clerical would be like an 8810 code, and all people that are working solely in this building have a different class code. The field personnel, field personnel could have different class codes depending on what they're doing.
Okay.
Obviously, in theory, the clerical employees would have less of a risk of injury than someone that would be working in the field. So you allot the payroll associated with each
Okay.
class code, if you would, multiply by the rate to get each job.
Okay. Any other questions? Eric?
These are apples to apples, all of the
Yes.
same thing, right?
Okay. Then looking for a motion.
I move to approve the quote from USI Travelers Insurance Company in the amount of $435,047 for workers' compensation, property liability, and automotive insurance.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the quote from USI Travelers in the amount of $435,047 for the workers' comp, property liability, and auto insurance. Additional questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Motion passes. So we can move on to budgets for fiscal year ending June 30.
Okay. These are maybe the read ahead is maybe a little bit different than we have done in the past, but I'll say on the front end, um, as we go through each of the different utilities, we have, we are recommending to the board, uh, that a 3% wage increase for employees be adopted as part of the budget. We have included it in the budget, and it is in each one of the budgets across the board. We also have incorporated in each of the budgets this insurance cost that we just approved. We have also accounted for the contribution in retirement and increase of 0.46% and the health insurance increase of 5% to be taken on by MUB, not passed on to the employee. So each of the budgets reflect those changes. So I won't repeat them as we go through. To talk a little bit about our current budget year, we'll talk about the water budget first. For the 21-22 budget, revenues are about just under 1% above our budget. Expenses, we're looking at about 5.3% below budget. We had capital improvement funds about 2.248 million, and debt service coverage at 141.1%. These dollars, I want to say, also they include these projects that we're doing. So these are not all generated from revenue, but dollars that come in for projects. We have a capital budget attached, and you'll notice that had a projected deficit of 16,000. So it's very small, and it's mostly due to the timing of when drawdowns occur from when invoices are submitted and we do the drawdown, the pay apps and the drawdowns. This year, we're looking at the 2018 bond proceeds. We're expecting to draw those down and use them in our this proposed budget. Those are dollars that are available to the utility, and we can use those as we see fit. So we are we have updated our budget to reflect the 12% increase that went into effect last September for the entire year. And we recall that Mylan is no longer a customer, and those revenues were removed. We have added the line of bond reserves that we have funded that are fully funded down at the Municipal Bond Commission. And you'll recall in the last meeting, the board approved us moving forward to pull back and replace those with the insurance policies. And so those reserves can be used to fund O&M and capital improvements as well. We have increased our chemical costs. We've accounted for that. An employee for our lead and copper, that has to be done. That the inventory, we had an employee, they left. We are in the process of hiring a new employee. I would say and Rich, you can jump in here, but I don't think we've had a lot of luck yet in finding that right fit from us. So we're still looking, because this has to be done correct. There's no room for error here. We do have some employees built in for the shop, and we are also dealing with the inflation. We expect to have funds for capital improvements, about 1.33 million, giving us a debt service coverage of 124%. The proposed capital budget for 22-23 does show a deficit of 159,000 as of June 30, but a large portion of that deficit is due to tank painting expenses. So we are looking at spending 875,000, but we will have to prioritize our capital improvements over the fiscal year and make that decision when the time comes, whether or not we're going to be able to do everything we want to do. The capital budget, I would say, is there's things that we know we have to accomplish, but then there's things that we just would like to accomplish that need to be done. But we are behind on our tank painting, and we do want to get that caught up. Yes.
What's the debt service requirement?
The 115 is our requirement, but our bondholders do like 125.
So we're at 150 roughly, give or take, on the other funding. Where is it at the beginning?
And Chip, you can jump in here too and help answer any question.
Capital improvement, the capital improvements, debt service coverage is 141%.
That's in the current.
Yeah, so some of that will offset the deficit.
Yes.
I have a question about motor fuel. Have you built in sufficient funds for the escalation in motor fuel expenses, particularly diesel?
Yes, we have, Chip has accounted for that. And I would like to say Pamela Taw is here this evening as well. She helped Chip prepare the budget and can help answer any of the details. But yes, we have, believe fuel was up, what, about 106,000 from where we were a year ago.
Up 106 from last
Yeah,
year.
this year, this can be projected to be about $300,000 this year's. That's
Hope-
gas and diesel.
Hopefully we end up finding some excess there. And hopefully we're
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
At some point, are you thinking about, did we talk about this last time, about moving to an electric fleet?
No, we haven't looked at that, you know, so our diesel or for our big trucks and heavy equipment. So we wouldn't, I don't think there's any opportunities there. And, you know, our trucks are work trucks, you know, they carry a lot of weight and, the tools, there may be an opportunity in the future to look at some electric for meter reading vehicles.
Well, Ford's making a new electric truck, so,
Totally sold out.
yeah, so are Tesla is, of course, but we don't,
Well, and Chevy's coming out with the EV as well, but it's you know, maybe sometime in the next decade those would be readily available and at a rate, and even could be abilities to tie into some of the wastewater treatment plants to make up some energy from that to charge the vehicles. So now the wastewater plant that we had in West Lafayette, they had charging stations that were based off of that, but
it'd be a good idea.
yeah, but I think we're still probably a few years off from something like that.
I would think so. You know, we were looking, it was almost a year just to get the trucks that we bought. You know, the new truck you saw sitting out front, that we bought it just for our valve turning program. And, it was right about a year. The dump truck that you approved, the F-750, it was canceled. They canceled it. They said, yep, we're out of time. We're not going to build it. You know, so we're waiting for that information to come in about, for the next year model, what's the price going to be? You know, is it going to be what we had for this last one, or are they going to jack it up? So we're waiting for that information.
On the fuel purchases, if I can return back to that, do we purchase on the marketplace, or do we have a fuel contract with local suppliers?
Marketplace. We get 3 quotes every time we need to purchase fuel.
In other words, every time you go to a pump, you get 3 quotes?
We buy it bulk. And we
Oh,
have
okay,
our
well,
own
that's
pumps.
that's
We
essentially
have,
what I'm talking about.
I'm sorry, I thought we had a contract with one supplier at a certain price. No, we get pricing every time we need to purchase fuel.
So we actually are storing the fuel here on site then?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Now, MUB is exempt from state and federal fuel taxes?
Yes, we
be.
are.
Yeah.
You know, we file a form each
Right.
month
Okay,
to recoup that cost.
okay.
Okay. Move on to the sewer. Mike?
Okay. For the current fiscal year, revenues are about 6.9% above budget. Operating expenses were about 1.8% above budget. Capital improvements projected to be about 2.6 million. Debt service coverage at 137.5%. The capital budget shows a surplus of 4.26 million as of the end of this year. But that surplus, and I want to make sure we're all clear on this one, it's all because of the ARPA grant from the Mon County Commission for MIP. that money was forwarded on to MUB, so that we have to account for those dollars, but those are dedicated for the project. We expect that funding will be spent all in this next fiscal year. We do have some bond proceeds, a 2016 bond. We do expect to draw those down and use them in the current fiscal year. And the current proposed budget revenues have been updated to reflect the increase we had last year. Same with the Mylan elimination. Expenses, again, the employee increases that I discussed earlier, and the additional employees in the shop, not Lead and Copper that employee will not be paid. That person will be paid strictly from water, not from any of the other utilities. And the funds for capital improvements, we estimate that to be around 2 million with a debt service coverage of 129.2%. And so if everything goes well, we'd be looking at about a $300,000 surplus at the end of that fiscal year. So we are crossing our fingers. We don't have any storms and things that we dealt with during this current fiscal year.
Okay. Questions on the sewer budget? What does she like?
Okay, take it. In the current fiscal year, revenues are just under 1% over budget. Expenses are about 2% below budget. We're looking at having capital improvement funds of about 242,000 with a debt service coverage of 162%. The revenues and expenses are pretty much right on track with our budget this year, and we're looking at the end of the year about a $15,000 surplus. So for the proposed budget, again, the exact same thing on the employees and the shop employees, additional shop employees, excuse me, and the capital improvements we project about 167,000 with a debt service coverage of about 142.9%. The Cheat Lake capital budget for 2023 shows a deficit of around $13,500. This deficit again is from capital projects for the 22-23 fiscal year. Again, we just prioritize those as we can do them, and if revenues are higher, then that would be great.
Can you use some of that overage in the debt service coverage to boost the capital project spending? Because you don't need 162% or 150%.
We absolutely can. Any of those dollars that are available, we can use all of that for capital improvements. That's where the surplus you get, that's what you're going to dedicate to your capital projects.
Because it doesn't make any sense to have that sitting. You don't need that surplus.
And the same with like the dollars setting in those bonds that haven't been, the same thing. We that money's there, we can use it, we can draw that down and put it to good work.
I have a question on the cheat sewer capital budget on the I&I study. Is that for the plant expansion?
Yes, we would want to look at an I&I study just to see if there are some things that we can tackle in the project, in the expansion project, that would make sense to reduce the flow.
But you have that in the 2022 total budget. You don't have anything in the 2023.
We had that, we were hoping to do that this year, but we did not take it on. When we do look at the expansion, right now, we're just looking at the preliminary engineering report, getting it completed. That's what they're doing. It may be part of the bigger project that we do with Strand and Associates, but it's not, we will not take that on as part of O&M. It would just be part of, with the expansion with Strand. And and part of that too is going to be what their recommendation to us is, because sometimes it's cheaper to treat it than try to fix it.
But we were talking about the expansion of the plant.
Right.
Right.
And the expansion of the plant with the flow, because of the increased flows
Yeah.
and the peak flows that we're hitting,
Mhm.
as to if they want to, if they're going to recommend to us to move forward
Okay,
of doing
so we'll
that as
have
part
a
of it.
definitive recommendation come out of that.
Would that get right, part of the PER? And that's all,
Because
we
the growth
expect
is
that.
continuing out there. And
oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? We can move on to the stormwater.
Okay, for the current budget year, we're about 1.9% below budget estimates. Expenses are about 1.1% below budget. The funds for capital improvements projected to be 321,000, and debt service coverage at 142.5%. The capital budget shows a deficit of 195,000. This is mainly due to the extra work because of the storms. We have spent a large amount of money there, especially in overtime that was spent in staff time on dealing with the large volume of calls and site visits. We also have the Baird Street project, which is going on right now. That's also a large portion of the expenditures. There is the bond that we have, the stormwater bond that we haven't drawn down 100%. We plan to do that to pay for Baird Street expenses or a portion of those expenses. The also have there's a 2014-27 bond proceeds that we can use in this current fiscal year as well. So I believe Rich is going to make a drawdown here shortly on for Baird Street.
Baird Street, correct.
And we'll have more of a report about Baird Street later on in the meeting. The proposed budget, we have revenues to reflect the increase from last year. Again, all the same things for the employees, except for again the lead and copper. The funds available for capital improvements about 296,000, with debt service coverage at 139.4%. The storm capital budget for proposed does have a slight deficit of $1,300, and this would be again for our capital projects, and we'll watch those as we go through the year and make any adjustments.
Okay. Questions on the budget? Like so we were approved to raise rates next year?
Yes, next year it's a 3%, and it is like an inflationary.
The cost of living adjustment for staff and the absorption of the increase in insurance, is that a common annual thing, or is it percentage up, lower than previous?
Well, this is, last year we reduced our insurance cost significantly by joining the West Virginia Public Employees Insurance. And so this is our first increase, and how that will go, it's has not been every year historically for what is referred to as a non-state member, that's what we are, a non-state member. We haven't seen increases every year, but this year there was one.
Maybe the question, I don't know, Eric, was the question if that, do we pass that on to the employee?
No, I'm just wondering, since it's the board first time doing the budget, is this common that if there's an increase is absorbed by MUB? And then the other question was the 3% cost of living adjustment for staff. Is that a common percentage, or is that up or down from previous
The
years?
3% is a common
I
percentage.
thought we did 2 last year. 3%.
No, we had the Christmas bonus and it's really not, the way I understand it, this is a structural pay increase, not necessarily a cost of living increase, although we hope that there's a reasonable balance there.
Karen, I believe what you're referring to is we had delayed raises, and
That's right.
when the pandemic hit, and then the board of directors approved those in January, and then had the second raise in July
That's
of last year. That's what had occurred. And I think, Barbara, that traditionally there's been like 1% of that was for that replaced like a performance program that used to be here at
That's
one
right.
time.
Yes.
Right,
And that's where 1% comes from. And but the 3% has been common.
And the 5% absorption by MUB, rather than shifting it on to employees, is basically a non-taxable benefit.
right.
Yes.
And an era where this 3% increases in pay, I like to call something below 5% a cost of living adjustment.
Yeah.
And it's generally been a raise the last couple of decades. This year, not so much. So it's good to be doing that absorption on top of the increase in pay, as well as our dollars aren't getting us quite as far as they did a year or two ago.
It's one of our best recruiting tools that we have, or the insurance.
Yeah, I'm on PEIA, and it's fantastic thanks to my wife's employment.
You know, the board, when we applied for that last year, it was it was a significant decrease in cost, and every employee benefited, no matter what they were paying for health care. Everybody benefited from that change.
And not just in the cost, but in the coverage.
And
Yeah.
yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Just one more question.
Sure.
Not directly budget related, but just out of curiosity, it's my first year on the board. In future years, would we be able to have a discussion like this in the May meeting, so that we can have some time to digest the overall budget before it comes to a vote in the June meeting, just to get a chance to really kind of look at it and have more of an understanding?
I think we could. This year was particularly challenging, where we had the vacancy in our payroll position, and Chip and Pam have essentially been doing that job as well as their everyday job. And then when we got Elaine on board, training her, it's and I would say I have to really pat Chip and Pam on the back for this, as quickly as they were able to get things put together and how well they did. But I would think, and Chip, I don't want to speak for you, but I would think that's very possible next year.
Sure, we could do that.
That
Well, I
would be,
think
that would be
what-
nice to have it a little bit ahead of time to review before.
Well, I think what you're basically
Dennis
laying
questions.
out is what are the key elements that will go into the preparation, whether it's salary increases,
Yeah.
yada, yada, yada,
Yeah, it doesn't have to be the whole formal budget,
No.
but yes,
Sure.
some talking points would
the
be
key
great.
parameters that you
Yeah.
outlined.
Yeah.
Good point, Eric. Okay. Other questions, comments? If not, we can,
I move to accept and approve the water, sewer, Cheat Lake sewer and storm budgets for 2022-2023 fiscal year as submitted and explained by the general manager, with the approved budgets to be included in the minutes of this meeting.
My second.
okay, we have a motion and a second to accept and approve the water, sewer, Cheat Lake sewer, and storm budgets for 2022-23 fiscal year as submitted. Additional questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes. Thank you, Chip, Pam. Okay, Michael.
Okay, as you recall, MUB kind of has a employee committee, and I meet with them every year to discuss things that are on their front of mind. And they have requested that they be allowed to carry over 10 days of vacation rather than 5 days a year. And it seems like a reasonable request, and I do think it would be good for, especially for our newer employees that get so much less vacation. It allows them to carry for a better vacation in the next year, and it doesn't cause any harm financially or otherwise to MUB for the few extra days.
My one question is, I didn't get the employee handbook out. Is this a rolling 12 months, or does this come on a calendar 12 months?
Calendar, right? Should
Yes, it's a calendar.
So
12
you
months.
could have 5 days left over, 10 days left over from last year and pick up your time on the front end of the next year?
Correct.
And
Yes.
Put it all together,
Yes.
okay. And
But there's-
that's not a concern by you? That somebody bunched it all together?
Not really. I mean, then I don't have the employee handbook in front of me, but there's this, you have to be here significant time to really.
Yeah, yeah, the first year you're hired, you get 2 weeks vacation, but it's prorated, so you don't get anything until the first six months, no matter when you start. And then after a year is up, then you get the other balance of that amount. Then you have to wait a whole other year to get any more time.
And you can't, there's something in place that says you can't keep rolling over, so I couldn't roll vacation over to where I could take a month at some point in life. So you
And it's
could
with
only
the-
roll over
yes.
each year, and that's it.
And it's with the approval of the supervisor.
Of course, yes.
Yeah, certainly, yeah.
Yes.
How long until employees get more than the 10 days vacation?
I think it's 2 years.
My only
So
concern
then
on
you
that.
get a full 2 weeks. After they've been here 2 years, you get 2 weeks.
Okay, so my only concern is, you know, I always strongly believe, like, in my past job where I was a manager, employees didn't get any vacation their first year, so I told them to build up comp time so they could, and then use it in a week, because not taking time off in a year will give you burnout real quick. And so my only concern would be someone banking their a whole year's worth of days just so they can take it in the following year, at which point you'll probably be wanting them to get the heck out of the office anyway because they need that. I think this is a good idea. I would just urge supervisors not to encourage anyone to go a year without taking any vacation time, because that's a great way to have HR issues.
I don't know of too many employers that take 2 weeks in a row. Once in a great while we do,
Yeah.
but I think this is the purpose of, and you get a week or two prorated, and they maybe want to take a family vacation for a week, and then also have some days that they could scatter throughout the next year. I think that's what they're having a hard time doing. So that's basically what that is for.
Yeah, I'm in favor of this. Just I wouldn't want people sitting on time and becoming a problem in the workplace just so they can go to Disney World for an extra few days next year.
So just so I understand, 10 days is the maximum you can have above and beyond your regular vacation.
Yes.
You can't have the third year 15 days.
Correct.
Yeah, so you have your regular vacation and up to 10 previous years vacation days.
You carried forward, correct.
Yeah,
You
okay.
cannot keep
You
banking.
can't keep banking them
No.
till you have.
You got to use it down to, you only have 10 days left, and you can carry those over.
Okay.
Right now, it's 5 days.
Now, I have a different question. Someone who's been here a long time, how many days of vacation do they receive?
They receive up to 6 weeks,
Okay,
and then 3 personal days if they have a hefty sick balance.
so someone who's coming up on retirement at the end of December, but they decide to defer to the next year, they could roll over the 10 days plus then add it to 6 weeks. And so get a nice bump and not leave until the payroll until March 1st.
Right, because a lot of people, what they do,
Right.
they get their six
Right.
weeks, and then they can have insurance for those six
Right.
weeks, which is a great benefit to our
Mhm.
employees.
And I believe I recall we pay it out if they have a balance and they're leaving.
Lump sum.
We do. If
Yeah.
somebody leaves and doesn't retire, then that is on their last paycheck. We pay out all their
And
vacation.
that's, okay, and that's only vacation, not sick days.
Vacation, sick time they lose.
That's right.
Yes.
Okay,
I move to increase the number of vacation days an employee can carry over from 5 to 10, and the employee handbook be updated to reflect this change.
I'll second.
motion and a second to increase the number of vacation days that we can carry over from 5 to 10 days. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And that's presumed a calendar year.
Yes.
That's what the handbook says now.
Yeah, it's a calendar.
Cool.
All right, that takes care of new business. So we can move on to old business.
Okay. Well, Kanawha Stone has been making very good progress. When I started writing the read ahead, we'd had the benefit of some great weather. Not so much now. At the time of writing, the field placement was at 1,053 feet, and our final design elevation is 1,069. Rich, I'll ask you if you had any updates you want to add to that.
No, that's still about where we are. I think we got another lift in on half the dam, and so it's still about there. But they're making also good progress in the spillway drainage channel at the bottom of the spillway. A lot of riprap going in there, and they're working really hard. So we've been pleased with the activity that's been out there.
If the rain keeps up, you won't have to fill it.
Speed it right along.
Well, that probably jinxed that. So, yeah,
So what are we looking at for, what's the projected?
As far as
69.
field placement on the dam, they're thinking mid-July. And then at that point, our engineers will tell us, along with dam safety, how long it has to sit before we start the filling process. And we're hoping it was 365 days.
Just to sit.
If it was, but we've been working on it for 3 years or 4 years, so it's been sitting anyways. And so that amount of time we're hoping is going to be greatly reduced. It has to sit there, but we won't know. We don't know that yet,
Sitting time, and then there's the filling time.
which is also a slow process.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
cross your fingers for 2023.
Do they do core drillings to ascertain whether sufficient, or is it just based on survey?
Survey
Okay.
monitors. Yeah.
Okay,
The Star City wastewater treatment plant, the punch list is about 95% complete. Alman Shooty, the general contractor, they're planning to demobilize by the end of June, but they're a painting subcontractor. There is work that they're going to have to redo. Some of the paint didn't hold from the original when they originally did it. So we had a meeting with Strand yesterday, and looks like we're going to be working with them on the change order to finish up around Labor Day. So we're just trying to help them, help us, and finish up and move along. So
are we gonna schedule a grand opening for at some point?
yeah, absolutely. It's we've had a few tours already,
Yeah.
but haven't had that the official flush, let's say. And, but it is coming on. I mean, for all purposes, everything is in operation, and it's working extremely well. The guys are doing a great job. It's just some of this painting that has to be redone.
What was the reason why the painting didn't adhere? Was it a painting problem or prep work?
Rich, I'm going to let you field that question.
I don't know that we're completely sure whether it was preparation caused it not to adhere, or whether there was some water that caused some of that issue as well. One of those.
When you say change order, might there be an added cost to mow for this fix?
Yeah,
Yeah, there shouldn't be.
you're not absorbing any of the.
No, the changes will come in dates.
Okay, so that's just changing.
Now,
not-
you always have a final adjusting change order at the end of every job, and we would, that's common, but we're just talking about dates right now.
Okay, good. Okay, that sounds like an E&O issue. Love issue.
Well, I mean, whether it's warranty or it should be taken
Great.
care of.
Okay,
Morgantown Industrial Park, as at the end of May, Anderson had installed 4,645 feet of water main. That represents about 66% of the total amount of pipe. They're starting to work on the water line installation towards the tank site. The water booster site has been graded and they will be starting that foundation, or they have started that foundation piping. The tank contractor reported their subcontractor will be grouting starting in mid-June. That grouting's due because of some mining activity, so they have to inject the grout to make sure that the ground is stable. And Green River, they've installed about 5,380 feet of gravity sewer main. That represents about 69% of the pipe. The contractor has completed the directional drilling underneath the Mon River. All the bore and jacks have been completed and the structures have been installed for the lift station at the new facility. So construction has started on the new MIP lift station by the river. So making some progress there as well.
Very good.
Upper Pocono Sanitary and Stream Restoration Project. We were unable to come to an agreement with the first engineering firm that we had selected. So we have met with the second firm and we are waiting now for their proposed contract, which we expected about any time. So once that is completed, if we do feel like that it works for all of us, then we will bring that contract back to the board, and we would also ask that they come in and talk about the project. The West Ridge development, Mr. Nessel Road, he's already spoken to that. We have been working with developers of West Ridge as well as other ones in the area. So we're continuing to work together to find funding opportunities for upgrades. I'll just continue.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Office renovations, we have met with the high strength architectural firm. We've gone over the scope of the project and we expect to see their contract here anytime. And the same as with the others, once that we want to bring that contract to the board, we will ask them to come as well. They've had some ideas that they've floated and I think you'll be excited.
Now, are they doing a workflow analysis as well as?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep. Yeah. We talked to them about that.
okay.
And so how the different departments
Right.
mingle with each other and so forth.
What we hope that they bring is a few options with costs associated with those options, but each one of them will include a workflow
Okay.
analysis.
That's exciting.
Just to update you on White Park, the trail and the trees, we understand we should be getting some information here in the coming weeks. Right now, we do not have a bid package for the trail or the trees at this particular time.
Should I hold my breath?
So, Mike, so that's where White Park is, but you didn't note that we are working with the city staff up at the reservoir on some trails.
Yes, Rich has had contact, I believe, with Rich
Edwards from
Rich
WVU.
Edwards.
Correct me if I'm wrong, didn't we approve as a board the concept to move forward in the funding for the White Park trees and trails at our March meeting?
The special meeting, yes.
Yes.
Okay,
The flood control study, we expect to have our first meeting with Strand here in the next couple of weeks. They're working now. It's so we've had kickoff meetings with them, but they are working on the project, and so we'll get our first project update. What we hope to do is have them when the time is right to be part of the board meeting, so we can keep everybody updated as to where we are. And I think we have some public meetings with that anticipated in that contract as well.
I'm not sure how that we do for sure. I'm not sure how that falls, whether it's in this first phase or whether it's at the beginning of the next phase. But we do have multiple public participation meetings.
The first phase will be so much information gathering. And so they can start the process of, okay, now where are we going to go in phase two and help us identify some projects.
You said we expect to have our first meeting. Are there others who will be with us? We're working in this project together, or consulting on this project together, like the university, the city, the Department of Highways.
We are, Ken Hacker is having regular contact with the DOH for information and WVU. But for this first phase of of our contract, it is just MUB.
Okay.
Is there a point where they will join in the fund?
We anticipate that they will, but I think that will really come once we start identifying the projects, and then we'll see what we can do together, because we are intermingled. I mean, we're connected to one another, and I don't think, if we make certain improvements and they don't make certain improvements, then what happens then? And I think Strand will be able to answer some of those questions.
Good.
That's cool.
So we'll see what we can all bring to the table and work together on. The long-term control plan, hydraulic modeling, it's the same thing. We hired Strand for both projects, so we'll expect to be working with them as well. The hydraulic modeling is going to be so important. This is dealing with our CSOs and what we're capturing and so forth. And as Scott Stearns pointed out when he attended the board meeting, once that is completed, then that is our roadmap for what comes next, what they're going to recommend to us. So this is a big project for all this modeling. And how many months of data did we collect, Rich? 9 months. So that's a lot of data to go through with 74 meters that they're getting that information from.
Okay. A lot of stuff.
Yeah.
We have a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
This is just not like our everyday stuff.
Gotcha. Okay, can move on to general manager's report.
Okay, after 2 months of waiting, the supply chain, we finally found it. So some fittings, the two crucial fittings. They've completed the diversion wall in the existing box, and now the combined sewage and stormwater is going into the new 36-inch line that was installed. Our staff, our team, went up and put a new drop inlet on Forest Avenue and new piping down. So that's going to connect to the new stormwater line that was laid from Deckers Creek up. So do you have anything where we are now in the stormwater?
Yeah, all of that is now connected
Oh,
and
great.
operational. And so Bear Street is back up to normal grade now. It's still gravel, so it hasn't been paved, but everything else is back up to grade.
When do we expect the drilling rig to come in?
They are supposed to be here before the end of the month, so next couple of weeks.
So that we have to get them in to do their so they can do the bores and finish up the design on the retaining wall and see where we are.
But right now we have a temporary wall that's up now using some of the Hoy blocks that were there already. And so we're hoping to get, by the end of the month, get all the data that Alpha needs to design the final wall.
The city's aware of this,
Oh yeah.
especially the retaining wall. And
Yes, and they were a part of the work that we did up on Forest. So they have, we put the inlet in, and they came in and did some sidewalk and some curbing up there associated with that inlet too. So
Okay,
The everyone will remember the legislature was in town, and we had the privilege of hosting some members of the legislature on a tour of our wastewater treatment plant. Delegate Riley, he was the lead person to set up the tour. So we had Delegate Clay Riley, Delegate Daniel Linville, as well as Delegate Evan Hansen, and Senator Mark Maynard came to take a tour. It was a very nice time to be. It was such a small group, so you could had a lot of interaction and great questions. And some of the legislative staff came. General counsel for the Senate Government Work Committee came. Carl Fletcher, he was here, and some other folks. So it was nice to. Carl is actually an expert in construction litigation, so this is right up his alley. And so we had a great time, and we were able to meet with him in our training facility and visit with them afterwards. So it was a good day.
Good.
Teased a couple of the guys as to why they weren't there, because they had an interest. We were talking about some of this, and we talked about why they weren't there. And
We are, you probably saw in the paper, the University Avenue water line replacement and a little bit of traffic diversion. So we were fortunate enough to have the good sense to wait till school's out.
Thank goodness.
Now that may not always be the case, but in this time it was. So, Rich, would you like to go ahead and talk about where we are in today?
Yeah, so we have started the directional drill, and we're a portion of the way through, and they continue to work. I actually think they're having a little bit of mechanical difficulties today, but working through that. Once that's completed, then our crews will do the tie-ins on both ends, and so there'll be some additional disruption there in traffic, and maybe some boil water notices there while we do the tie-in. But probably in about a month's time, we'll be doing that work. So until then, the directional drill will be happening underneath University Avenue.
I have a question, but it's not in your report. It's the Mile Ground project. Have all the water and sewer relocations been completed, or are they still in the process of doing that?
I'll have to defer to
Yeah.
Rich.
I did. Dave Bragg is our project manager on that project, and he indicates that our portion of that work up there is complete or very near complete. That doesn't mean that the work up there is not.
Oh, no, it's not. No.
It'll take forever.
it's gonna be.
But I keep driving through there, and that's why I was kind of curious.
Yes. So ours is
Good.
done up there.
Okay. Well, if you're finished, if we're done with the GM report, we can move to board member topics. So any other questions for the staff?
I have a question, and I think I asked this before. I think you're going to schedule a luncheon for all the staff at some point.
Yes,
I
probably.
forget when that is, though.
Probably in September.
In
is when
September,
we'll-
okay.
At the same time we did last year.
I couldn't remember when it was last year, so I had to bring it up.
Temperature's already hitting the 90s. September sounds great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, we're not even in summer yet.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, any other topics? If not, we can look for a motion to move to executive session.
I move we convene to executive session of the Board of Directors under the provisions of West Virginia Code 6-9A-4B2A to discuss personnel issues, and under the provisions of West Virginia Code Section 69A-4B12 to discuss legal issues, and further move that the June 14th, 2022 regular meeting of the Board of Directors be adjourned at the conclusion of the executive session.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to convene to executive session as per the provisions so noted. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we will
What do you need?
move to executive session, and we need who, Mike?
The four of us.
All right.
You're so much better at reading that than I tried it last time.